Smarten up. Smarten up. Smarten up! I'm smart. I'm smart. I got it now. I'm smart. I'm smart.
Jay Leno's life today is nothing like most people expect. After decades in the spotlight, Jay Leno stepped away from late-night television.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I love you, heard.
But what came next has been far more intense than his time on screen. From a near-fatal garage accident to the quiet realities of his personal life, the version of Jay Leno in 2026 is very different from the one millions remember. So how does Jay Leno actually live now? And what has happened in his life since leaving television? Join us as we uncover how Jay Leno lives today. The two accidents that changed his face. The night of November 12, 2022, started the way most nights at Jay Leno's garage start. He was working on a car. In this case, it was a 1907 white steam car, one of the oldest and most unusual vehicles in a collection that contains enough automotive history to stock a serious museum. The fuel line was clogged, and he had crawled underneath the car to investigate. He asked his friend and mechanic, Dave Kilacki, who was positioned above the engine, to blow some air through the line, and the pilot light jumped. Jay told Hoda Kotb on the Today Show in December 2022 that he got a face full of gasoline that caught fire immediately. Dave Kilacki, who was right there, grabbed him by the head and pulled his face into his chest to smother the flames. The fire was out within seconds, but the damage was done. Jay's face, his left ear, and his hands had taken the full initial impact. Dave described it as a wall of fire that went up instantly, and said he could not even see Leno's face in those first moments. The doctors told him to go directly to a burn center. Instead, he drove himself home. His wife Mavis was already dealing with health problems, and he did not want her to not know where he was or how to reach him. He sat with her, went to sleep, and woke up in the morning unable to open his eyes because the burns had sealed the pillow to his face overnight. He cut the pillow away with scissors and went to the Grossman Burn Center in West Hills Hospital in Los Angeles. He spent 9 days there, 8 hours a day, in a hyperbaric chamber where oxygen helped accelerate the healing process. He had 2 skin grafting surgeries, one using skin from a human cadaver, and one using tissue derived from pig intestine. His surgeon, Dr. Peter Grossman, described the burns as covering approximately 7% of his body and said they were quite significant. Jay told Kotb during his first major public interview after the accident that he had not taken any pain medication during the procedures because he wanted to be able to feel when he was getting better. He described the pain as a reminder that he was an idiot. He missed 2 days of work during the 9-day stay, but went back to performing almost immediately after his discharge. And then, 66 days later, he had another accident. In January 2023, Jay was riding one of his motorcycles when someone had a wire strung across the road at face height. The wire hit him and knocked him off the bike. He broke his collarbone, broke 2 ribs, and cracked both kneecaps. He described the moment as being hit in the face and suddenly finding himself in the air. 2 years after both accidents, at the 2024 Daytime Beauty Awards in September, Leno appeared publicly to honor Dr. Grossman with the Outstanding Achievement in Medicine Award. Standing on the red carpet, he told E! News that things were good and that he could not complain. He said the new face he got out of the surgery was better than the one he started with. He meant it as a joke, but the joke also told fans something real about how he handles difficulty. And if 2 accidents in 66 days was enough misfortune for one man, November 2024 had something else waiting. Because Jay Leno is apparently the kind of person that the universe is not quite finished testing yet. The fall that nobody noticed until he showed up with an eye patch. In November 2024, 2 years after the garage fire and less than 2 years after the motorcycle crash, Leno was in Greensburg, Pennsylvania, to perform a stand-up show. He was walking outside the Hampton Inn to go to dinner at a nearby restaurant when he tripped on the sidewalk and rolled 60 feet down a hill, landing against the curb. He broke his right wrist. He tore the fingernail completely off his right index finger. He sustained bruises across his left side and a periorbital hematoma around his eye, which is the medical term for the kind of deep bruising that causes your eye socket to swell and discolor completely. He performed the show that night wearing an eye patch. He told Inside Edition afterward that he had tried to keep quiet about the accident because of all the attention his garage fire had attracted. He said something that reveals a great deal about how he thinks about his own public life. After getting burned up, you get that one for free. After that, you are like Harrison Ford crashing airplanes, and you just want to keep your head down. He did not want to be the man who was always having accidents in front of the world's cameras. He had a show to do. He put on an eye patch and did the show. His surgeon, Dr. Grossman, had described him after the fire as one of the most genuine and grounded people he had ever worked with, saying that the biggest challenge in treating Jay Leno was that the entire world was watching, and that the greatest unexpected reward was discovering what kind of person Jay actually was. He called him kind, generous, and down-to-earth in a way that had made him a role model. 3 serious physical incidents in 2 years: a broken wrist, torn fingernail, cracked kneecaps, broken collarbone, broken ribs, third-degree burns, skin grafts, a new ear, and 8 hours a day in a hyperbaric chamber. And he still did the show. Every time. What those accidents could not touch, and what the people around Leno will tell you, is the most important thing to understand about who he actually is the reason he drove himself home the night his face was on fire instead of calling an ambulance. He went home for Mavis. And the story of what Mavis is facing right now is the part of Jay Leno's current life that carries the most weight: the marriage and the heartbreak inside it. Jay Leno met Mavis Nicholson in 1978 at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles. He was a young comedian trying to build a career. She was intelligent, driven, politically engaged in a serious way, and exactly the kind of woman who would not be impressed by the fact that he was funny for a living. He was drawn to that immediately. They dated for 2 years and got married on November 30th, 1980. They chose not to have children, a decision they made together, and have never publicly second-guessed. Mavis Leno is not simply a celebrity spouse who attended events and supported her husband's career from the background. She is a leading feminist activist in her own right, and she has chaired the Feminist Majority Foundation's campaign to stop gender apartheid in Afghanistan since 1997. In 1999, she and Jay donated $100,000 to the cause, specifically to fund education for women and girls living under Taliban rule. She has said publicly that the education of Afghan women is one of the central concerns of her life, and the foundation she supports has worked on this issue for decades. Jay has described her consistently as the brains of the relationship, and himself as the one who tells jokes. In January 2024, TMZ obtained legal documents showing that Leno had quietly filed for conservatorship over Mavis due to a diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease. The court approved the conservatorship, giving Jay control over her estate and her personal and financial decisions. Neither Jay nor Mavis made a public statement about the filing. The information came out through the legal documents rather than through any announcement they chose to make. In one of the few times he has spoken about it, Leno said something that was simple, honest, and more affecting for being so plainly stated. He said, there are going to be a couple of years that are tricky, that the first 46 years were really great, and that he was not a woe-is-me person. He said he was just lucky to be able to take care of her. He brings her to car shows. He brings her to events when she is able to attend. He still credits her presence in his life as the primary reason he describes himself as very happy, which is not a small thing to say about a man who is also caring for someone with advancing dementia while recovering from 3 serious physical injuries in 2 years. His secret for 45 years of marriage, when a reporter asked him directly, was something that would get a laugh in any comedy club and also happens to be perfectly accurate. He said the secret was not to fool around, and that it was a pretty simple formula. The man who has been performing stand-up comedy for over 200 nights a year for decades, who never spent his television salary and never took on debt, and who quietly donated more than $14 million to charitable causes while nobody was paying particular attention, is also the man who sits down at the end of an evening with Mavis and does whatever that evening requires of him. Both of those things are Jay Leno in 2026, and they are not in contradiction. To understand how unusual that really was, you have to look at how he treated money during his peak years at NBC. The money secret nobody talked about for decades. Jay Leno hosted The Tonight Show from 1992 to 2009, stepped away briefly, came back in 2010, and hosted his final episode on February 6, 2014. During that entire run, which produced some of the most consistent television ratings in the history of late-night programming, he was earning between $15 million and $30 million per year from NBC. At his peak, his salary was $30 million annually, which works out to roughly $150,000 per episode. He did not spend any of it, not $1. He lived entirely off his stand-up comedy income throughout his entire career, banking every NBC paycheck and treating the television money as something to be saved rather than spent. He has described this approach as a rule he set for himself early. Always have 2 sources of income and live off the smaller one. He had no manager and no agent, negotiating all of his own contracts directly with the networks. He has no debt. He pays cash for everything. He did not take on business partners or invest in projects he did not personally understand. The result of that discipline applied over 22 years of Tonight Show income is a net worth currently estimated at $450 million, making him one of the wealthiest comedians alive and one of the wealthiest entertainers in any genre. It is not the kind of wealth that comes from making a lucky investment or selling a company at the right moment. It is the kind of wealth that comes from making the same simple decision over and over again for decades, while everyone around you is making a different decision. His car collection alone is estimated to be worth between $50 and $100 million and is housed in his Big Dog Garage in Burbank, California, a 122,000 square foot facility that functions as a working mechanical workshop as well as a private automotive museum. The collection contains at least 181 cars and 160 motorcycles as of late 2024, ranging from a 1904 curved-dash Oldsmobile to a 1994 McLaren F1 that was the first McLaren ever imported to the United States, and that he bought for approximately $800,000 in the late 1990s. It is now worth at least $20 million. The collection also includes 2 tanks, 3 antique electric cars, and 1 of 9 surviving 1963 Chrysler turbine cars. He has never owned a Ferrari, despite being one of the most serious private car collectors in the world, which is a choice he finds amusing and occasionally discusses on the YouTube channel attached to Jay Leno's Garage. After The Tonight Show ended, his stand-up touring income continued between $10 and $15 million per year from more than 200 live shows annually. He hosted Jay Leno's Garage on CNBC from 2014 to 2022. He hosted a revival of You Bet Your Life from 2021 to 2023. He writes a regular column for Popular Mechanics. He has written occasional automotive pieces for the Sunday Times in the United Kingdom. He served as a judge on Hot Wheels Ultimate Challenge. He has appeared on Jimmy Fallon's version of The Tonight Show multiple times as a guest. He is, at 75 years old, one of the busiest entertainers of his generation. And he is doing it all while managing a conservatorship, recovering from 3 accidents, and still spending hours every week in a garage that once caught his face on fire. But what stands out even more is that this constant output doesn't translate into a flashy lifestyle at all. It raises a bigger question. What does Jay Leno's everyday life actually look like behind all the work, wealth, and headlines? How he actually lives, day to day in 2026. The picture of Jay Leno's daily life that emerges from the interviews he has given since leaving The Tonight Show is surprisingly ordinary for a man with $450 million and a garage that needs a zip code of its own. He performs stand-up comedy over 200 nights a year, traveling to venues across the United States and Canada. He does not have a tour manager in the traditional sense and has historically managed much of his own logistics. He does USO shows for military audiences. He does charity events. He shows up in places like Greensburg, Pennsylvania, in November, trips on the sidewalk on the way to dinner, breaks his wrist, and does the show anyway with an eye patch over his swollen eye. When he is not performing, he is in the garage. That has not changed because of the fire. It has not changed because of the motorcycle accident. It has not changed because of the fall. The 1907 white steam car that caught his face on fire is still in the garage. He has spoken about it without bitterness, describing the accident as something that real people experience every day, and that he refuses to dramatize simply because he happens to be in show business. He said that if you joke about it, people laugh with you, and that is considerably better than whining about it. He said at the 2024 Daytime Beauty Awards that his current life is good, that things are good, and that he cannot complain. He said he writes jokes, tells jokes, and gets checked by his doctors, and that it is a very simple process. He said he hoped his next chapter does not include his next accident, which got the laugh it was intended to get, and which also communicated something real about a man who is paying close attention to the patterns in his own recent history. He does not drink or smoke. He does not gamble. He has described his lifestyle since leaving The Tonight Show as calm in the personal sense, while remaining relentlessly busy in the professional sense, which is a balance that seems to suit him genuinely rather than being a performance of contentment. The garage tours that used to happen regularly at the Big Dog Garage have become more limited and are generally reserved for media appearances and charitable events rather than the open public access that characterized earlier years of the car collection's visibility. The YouTube channel connected to Jay Leno's Garage continues to produce content that brings the collection to an audience that has no prospect of visiting Burbank in person. His charitable work has raised over $14 million across the full span of his career, primarily through his long association with the Love Ride, a charity motorcycle event he has served as Grand Marshal of since 1985, which supports causes including muscular dystrophy and veterans services. He funds automotive restoration scholarships at McPherson College. He supports educational programs for girls in Afghanistan through the foundation Mavis has dedicated her professional life to building. None of this philanthropy was done for publicity. Most of it received very little public attention during the years it was happening, because Leno was not doing it to be seen doing it. He was doing it because he had the money and the platform, and believed it was the right use of both. After hearing everything about how Jay Leno is living his life right now, does it change the way you think about the man who used to sit behind the Tonight Show desk and tell jokes about traffic in Los Angeles? And is there another television legend from that era whose current life you want us to dig into? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.